Hello, listener. In today's edition of the Euro Football Verdicts, we're going to discuss why the Nations League shouldn't even be taking place. Also, we're going to look back at what happened in the last weekend. In Spain, Real Madrid and Atletico lost, while in Italy, Juventus drew, and some interesting things are happening. In Portugal, we had the Clásico 2-2 between Sporting and Porto. Finally, we're going to discuss what the week has in store for us in the UEFA Champions League. Very interesting matches ahead, such as PSG, Man United, and Atletico, Bayern Munich. This and much more in today's Euro Football Verdicts. Hello everyone, welcome to the new edition of the Euro Football Verdicts. What a great weekend that we had passed. A lot of things to discuss, both in each of the leagues, national team level and the Champions League. For that, we need the help of Marco. Hi Marco, how's it going?
Hello everyone, all good.
Wow, what a nice weekend that we had, right?
Yeah, a lot of goals, a lot of unexpected results. Overall, I think many of the things that happened, we didn't see them coming, did we?
No, definitely. We have a lot to discuss. But first, let's take a step back and just pinpoint something on the national team's front.
Since you last listened to us, we didn't have the national leagues happening, but what we had was the Nations League going on. And to be honest, Alex, and I'm just gonna put it very bluntly there, no one really cared. Many games were happening, but I must say, maybe because the league just started, maybe because the whole Corona situation, maybe because the results were quite boring. I mean, if I have to really think about a couple of outstanding results, to be honest, I can hardly think about one. So many draws, so many 0-0s, many 1-1s, many expected results, if not a very boring draw. I wasn't really excited. Alex, anything? What's your thoughts about this Nations League?
Well, you're talking about 0-0 draws. I mean, Portugal, I had to witness two games, once against for Spain, friendly, and then another regarding the Nations League in France. So two very big games between Portugal and those teams, and God, they were boring. Now, the question is, should they even take place? Given the current situation, and you stated it correctly, of Corona, does it even make sense to be playing Nations League? That is actually not a priority right now. So I'm curious. And then, for instance, we've seen it in the Portuguese team, for instance, now Ronaldo has COVID. Other players have contracted COVID, albeit not being directly due to Nations League. But this could help furthering the disease among football teams from bringing from one place to the other. So
yeah,
does it even make sense, Marco?
Absolutely. We have each league basically in a bubble where team don't see anyone outside from the direct team, and even if they have to go out often in some countries such as the Netherlands, they actually even have to request a permit to see anyone outside from the family and of close family and the families of the teammates. In Italy now, multiple teams have been in lockdown, so all the trainings during the week, the players are staying there and sleeping in the training facilities. And generally speaking, in the whole Europe, we're seeing the same thing. What's the point of having a competition that, let's be honest, was created just to avoid to have too many friendlies, because friendly didn't have enough money, interest, that weren't fun, really. But the only reason was to fill a gap of too many friendlies. What's the point in that? And also, again, thinking at what FIFA and UEFA are saying right now, clubs are allowed not to send players, but of course, a Ronaldo or someone like him that is the pillar of a national team, that don't have that many years in him no more to be at that level, they want to play for the national team because they still believe they can add something. You're putting at risk player for no reason.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should scrap it. Honestly, we'll have enough problems with the Champions League and the Europa League this year that we don't really need another competition doing this. Despite how we all love our national teams, there has to be priorities, and the Nations League cannot be one of them, to be honest.
Yeah, and we already missed a major competition, right, this summer that's gonna be in 2021 and still called 2020 because the logo has been made and the sponsorship has been made, so you can change it. But if you keep on going with these, we won't finish the Serie A, we won't finish La Liga, we won't finish Liga NOS because we already have so many games that have been delayed, postponed. Genoa tonight will be playing with 3 people that never played a single minute for Genoa. 3 17 years old because they have 14 people out with COVID. It's already a struggle for leagues to go ahead, let alone if you even further situation with this competition. I don't really see the value. I think that UEFA will have to accept it sooner than later. The CR7 situation, I think, really put the spotlight under the lack of usefulness of this competition and the major risk that is posed into the players. I expect some changes sooner than later, to be quite frank.
No, definitely. And then you had a lot of issues regarding even the Ukraine team who had to select a 45-year-old former goalkeeper of theirs to their team because, well, they just didn't have enough players. So, obviously...
Actually, he was a coach of the team, not even a player no more. He is a coach.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 goalkeepers, Piatov, Lunin, and Pankiv, tested positive. And so they had to put Shavkovsky, which is the goalkeeper coach, had to be in the squad. So I don't really get this. I mean, it's a horrible decision. We're going to all regret this in the end, in the middle of a country a continent that is turning red with the new map from the European Union. Everything is with a lot of issues, and we're here playing friendlies and Nations League. I think it's stupid, to be honest. But yeah, it will give us definitely something to talk to at least about in the coming months, at least for the summer, so that we can organize Euro 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, precisely. And as you mentioned, just the last point, it's not just about COVID, right? Also the risk of injuries. I mean, we saw Luke Shaw getting badly injured. We saw Zaniolo earlier in September getting badly injured. It's already a struggle for team to put a good 11 in place for every single weekend. If you then keep losing players to COVID and to injuries, it's not fun. I mean, what's the point of seeing an under 21 with a Manchester United shirt in Champions League if that person is not as capable as someone else? Like there's no point.
I mean, this weekend we lost Diego Costa to injury and Van Dijk ACL rupture. So that's many months. Sergio Ramos is someone who's never injured, right? He's also had to be stretched off in the Real Madrid game. So a lot of questions are going to start to appear on this in terms of injuries.
I would say let's dive into the weekend and the results that all the leagues had. As you mentioned, just Sergio Ramos and La Liga. I would start from there in the next session.
Perfect. Let's take it from there and discuss what happened in the national leagues.
A very interesting weekend of surprises in Spain. 2 teams that in the next weekend we're gonna play the Clásico. Real and Barcelona, they both lost. The former against Cadiz 1-0 and the latter against Getafe for a penalty scored by Mata, a player that we haven't seen at very high level in quite a while, but that always proved to be quite good in all the experiences that he had across Europe. We also have a new couple leading La Liga. On one hand, the Yellow Submarines, Villarreal, and on the other, the new David Silva team, Real Sociedad, managed to get to the lead of the championship of La Liga by winning both Also quite interesting, Atletico Madrid managing to win 2-0 against Celta Vigo, possibly showing that the crisis is over. We're going to see also how they're going to perform in Europe this week. But at the very least, getting some results. Decent win of Athletic Bilbao 2-0 against Levante, and also Elche winning 2-0 against Alaves, and getting a couple of points that are going to be key for avoiding relegation later on. Also, two draws we had. We had on one hand Eibar Osasuna 0-0, and on the other Huesca Valladolid 2-2. Alex, should we get concerned about Real Madrid and Barcelona?
Well, I think we were always concerned about Barcelona, right? I mean, we know they'll do a competent league, but we're not predicting them to aim for to be a challenger to Real Madrid's first position. The Real Madrid situation is an interesting one. So I think that's the point where we start making our first questions about the COVID season. As we stated, with the increasing injuries, the lack of game time preparation, with European games now starting, this will be a lot for a team that brought no reinforcements this season. Basically brought Odegaard back from loan, but let's be honest, and Odriozola also from Bayern back, but I mean, those are not really reinforcements, to be honest, in terms of having squad depth, and not in terms of quality, but in terms of depth, which could be an issue. So I'm starting to get a bit concerned about Real Madrid. I think Barcelona is doing what we expected with them. The Real Madrid one is an interesting one, and when you look at how they're performing, I mean, sitting sixth, I mean, let's also not read too much into this with 5-6 games. Also, Real Madrid has one game less than Sociedad and Villarreal. So
yeah, it's quite hard.
Yes,
it's quite hard to read the La Liga's standings right now, as many games haven't been played. But nonetheless, it's not as strong Real Madrid as we would have expected. And there are a couple of things that made us worry, right? Like, a couple of pillars, as you mentioned before, Sergio Ramos not being as injury adverse possibly as he used to be, but also Marcelo really lacking form, being, actually there were very interesting statistics. Out of the 8 games that Marcelo played this season, 8 losses. So even the friendlies during the summer, or basically any kind of game that Real played, Marcelo wasn't really the cause for the defeat, but definitely the statistic doesn't help. Maybe a couple of those strong points that Real Madrid had over the past couple of seasons that are, let's say, seen as capable of closing the cycle are not that capable. Plus a couple of additions that we had over the past couple of years, and it's not secret that Hazard hasn't been performing as much as they were hoping, given that they paid 100 million for him, right? But he's not at the level that he used to be a couple of years back. It doesn't feel like a finished team. It does feel like there is room for a couple of underdogs to put their foot in the big door of, if not La Liga winners, definitely Champions League competitors.
No, definitely. I think when we predicted this and we said, well, it's going to be a flat top 4, the question is, the order regarding Sevilla and Atletico. Let's be honest. I think it's still a bit too early to, let's press the panic button and say, okay, all the top 4 is gone. I think, honestly, we're reading a bit too much into this. I mean, right now, even if, for me, the clear favorite to go down, Elche, is sitting comfortably in 10th place with 1 less game than Real Madrid. So, and they're 3 points behind them. So I'm not going to say, okay, burn everything we said, but it is definitely going to have an even bigger impact than we thought. We have to admit that it's shown that it is till now showing that it will have a bigger impact. But La Liga is, for me, the competition where we're seeing the biggest skewness in terms of games played. So
Yes.
There's not a lot we can read into it. But it's going to be a couple of weeks that we're going to have to look into this and see if Cadiz is able to survive, actually,
Precisely.
compared to what we thought, and hold on to their fourth place currently, which I do not expect.
No, but I think that this is really a proof of the fact that this season will be very unique, let's put it that way. And it's not just indeed the bubble, the COVID, but it's also about how teams are living the situation. It's hard for everyone. You don't have the fans. So also, that momentum that winning usually gives you, with the fan getting excited, with everyone rooting for you, with the support that the big team have at home compared to the small team, and even away, really, let's be honest. We don't have that. And even many results, if I can link to this, that we had in Italy, were showing that the big teams are struggling. And just to analyze a little bit of the weekend that we had in Italy, we had Lazio losing 3-0 against Sampdoria, who by many analysts is seen as one of the potential relegation teams, at the very least one that could be underperforming compared to the brand, the team, and the history that Sampdoria has. We've seen Inter, who is clearly, after this transfer market that Conte has led, is expected to win the league. Anything but a league win would be seen as a defeat for Conte. We saw Juventus actually drawing against Crotone, which is quite absurd if you think about the fact that Crotone is just newly promoted team. There was a red card, no doubts given. There was a goal disallowed via VAR, but we expect more from Juventus, to be quite frank. Also, Fiorentina drawing against Spezia, another newly promoted team. It's just so many things you would not expect from a single weekend. Does this mean, Alex, that everything that we started with, all our expectation about the teams and everything, should we forget about this and just look at the form? Or is it just the initial moment? Because then the length of the team will make the difference.
Isn't it form is temporary, class is permanent? Isn't that what we always say?
Yeah.
I think in the end, this is going to be an atypical season for a lot of situations, and we keep going through this because it is a cycle. We don't know the impact that the factor of the European competitions now are going to play. Let's be honest. There are a lot of things that can impact the current performance. If we look at the results, I think what surprises me more in Italy is the amount of goals, to be honest, which just shows if we're truthfully on this, it's easier to score than to defend. You need more time to organize defenses and create stable teams. Not having a preseason is something that impacting a lot of this and resulting in a lot of teams just basically being perfected to play every 3-4 days. The focus is not really on getting a structure in the team, getting a defensive capabilities up, because that's what takes most time to build. So I think it's gonna be the best defense in terms of the guys who have changed less from one year to the other, who are more organized, have teams more structured in the way that their coaches want to be, should have an uplift on this one, right?
Yeah, I agree with you on one hand, but on the other, if I'm thinking about the two, let's say, best surprises of the Serie A last season, and the two most organized teams in defensive and offensive, respectively, Lazio and Atalanta, they both had a quite harsh defeats this weekend. I think there's a little bit more. It's a lot about just the fact that certain teams have a little bit more hunger than others. That's what I've seen during this weekend. We have seen Sassuolo coming back from 3-1 to 4-3, winning against Bologna, and that was just about the grit. No matter how much a trainer can influence, it's all about the players. they just stopped playing. Fiorentina from 2-0 losing 2-2, same thing. They just didn't attack the whole second half. They felt like, okay, we won this one, we're good. And on the other hand, teams that, despite the advantage, such as Atalanta and Roma, were keep on pressuring, keep on doing offensive action, not leaving time to breathe. Those are the teams that won. I think this season is really going to be about maintaining the momentum. And you can, without fans, you can only maintain it by playing 90 minutes of very offensive football. I do expect many more of these one-sided results or one-sided halves of the game, I must say, where one team scores one goal and then they just get very excited and they just make it. They score another and another and another. And suddenly it's 5-2.
No, I understand your point, but I'm still going to go back to mine. If you look at Serie A currently, first to fourth place, AC Milan, Sassuolo, Atalanta, Napoli, all of them, none of them changes their manager.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one, right? Because you see that these kind of teams in Napoli lost, let's be honest, in a very, their loss is a very contentious one in terms of losing 3-0 to Juventus. So if you think about it, the amount of points Juventus has is inflated versus the one that Napoli has.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you think about it, Juventus changed a team, best case scenarios, they will be where they are, but they could also be around
5
10th.
points. Yeah, correct.
So let's be honest on this one. I think it is something that we can start seeing in those kind of teams. And Sassuolo, I think, is going to be a very interesting team this season because, they have an interesting model. And I think it's going to be a season where someone like a Sassuolo could make a really run for even a Champions League place if everything pans out without having the European games. I think it should be factored in.
Absolutely. Playing every 3 days, it's going to be very impactful for many teams.
It's impossible. I think it's going to be, even now with the UEFA Nations League. We had, in Portugal, we had the game on Wednesday against Sweden, albeit it was at home, and many of the players had to play on Saturday a classic. Yeah. So it's absurd. Those players cannot go from one, and eventually some of them will get COVID, which means they won't be able to play, and the others are going to break their legs. I know it sounds very doom and gloom, but
yeah, that's a reality we're facing. It's going to be definitely a particular year, but possibly connected to what you just said. What happened in Portugal?
Well, we had a very interesting weekend because we had the Clásico. We had a Clásico in Alvalade, Sporting against Porto. It was clearly the highlight of this this weekend. It finished 2-2. So it was a very distinct game, as you say, a game of 2 halves in that case. So you had Sporting started really well. So Sporting now keeps starting the first 15 to 20 minutes with an absurd amount of pressure over the opponents, and eventually got the goal scored by Nuno Santos. That pressure soon started to give Porto more freedom, because Porto also had to take a big charge of the game in the end of the first half. In the last 5 to 10 minutes, Porto scored twice. And in the last minute of the first half, they had a very, very debatable penalty. So the ref signaled the penalty by saying that the left back of Porto, Zaidu, which was his debut for Porto, committed a foul over Pedro Gonçalves. That was a second yellow, a red card, and penalty for Sporting, which was then taken away by VAR. Very big issue between the teams. The manager of Sporting got sent off. Yeah. Second half, the game continued. The penalty was reverted. In the second half, you could say, okay, now Sporting going back and controlling most of the game, and Porto only playing in the counter. But eventually, you could see Porto players just too tired. And even Pepe, for me, man of the match with a big difference. But eventually, everyone couldn't handle the pressure, and the Sporting scored the 2-2 at minute 88 by Luciano Vieto. So was a quite interesting match on that part, but it's the first Clásico between the big ones. Not much to read into it, since also Sporting has one game less than the others due to a COVID situation. So they're still going to play next week against Gil Vicente, the match that they're missing. Otherwise, I'd say the highlight definitely goes to Benfica this weekend. 3-0 thumping over Italy's favorite Rio Ave, which is the team that came closest to win against Milan this season. Let's see if it keeps like that. Would be a nice history for Rio Ave at least. They thumped them 3-0. Lukas Waldschmidt, the German international, really showing why he's there. And they're currently similarly to AC Milan, the only perfect team now in Portugal. 4 games, 4 wins, a lot of goals, and they're really making it enjoyable for everyone. I have to admit they're playing wonderful football. So yeah, now you're seeing a bit Braga's recovery over the slow start, losing the 2 games. But overall, still, as I say in Spain, it's still too early to call anything. But yeah, okay, you can see already the start of Benfica's triumphant.
Yeah, I think 5 points in 4 games, it's a lot. That really shows that they are of a different level. Their transfer market was of a different level. For different reasons, Porto and Sporting were, let's say, already last season, the only teams that could really compete with Benfica, couldn't make such a strong transfer market. So I think it's just gonna be full domination. It's gonna be an easy win for Benfica. I'm sorry to destroy all the fans that were hoping, you included, Alex, to have a little bit of a challenge. But I think really 5 points in 4 games, it's absurd. And the quality they've shown, the number of goals, like 13 goals scored, 3 goals conceded. That's a judgment.
It's absurd. The only factor I would still put in the situation is that Porto and Benfica, respectively, still have European competitions, while Sporting was unfortunately kicked out. So that might be a factor that can maybe still play something in the coming weeks. We have to see how this goes, because now it's going to be a different level. And the thing is also, to be honest, I would say Porto will suffer the most, definitely, because Porto has the smallest squad between the 3 of them, in terms of depth. And quality-wise, they have an 11 that is close to Benfica's, but in terms of depth, they even have less depth than Sporting. So because that's what they had to get rid of this summer, they had to get rid of a lot of depth that the squad had, and now they're playing with a lot of players from smaller teams or from their youth academy. So they're going to be thinly stretched. And Conceição is already saying after the result, yes, we drew, but why did we drew? Because once I replace the players, they are not the same. And you cannot, only wearing the badge of Porto, it's not the same. As of highlighting to management, guys, we have issues.
Yeah, precisely. We also have to see how that's going to be perceived by the management, right? We often see that presidents, owners, etc., are not very happy to hear a manager going that bluntly against the decision that have been in the transfer market. Then again, I think it's just fair for Conceição to say what he just said, right? It's quite obvious. And that's happening for multiple teams. I mean, I'm a Lazio fan. We're playing a 29-year-old, but we played a 29-year-old in every single game as a sub who never played in Serie A beforehand, Akpa Akpro, which the name is fun by itself. And we got it from Salernitana after he had a quite a decent season in a middle table team last year in Serie B. But these are the players that even quite large team have to play, given that multiple leagues have 5 subs and they're playing every 3 days. At a certain point, you can't really have 20 player of a world class level. You usually have 10, maybe 13, and the rest is players that are quite decent to fill in. But, when you have an injury, then you have to play this player or adapt others in positions that are not their role.
Oh, you're right on that point. I think it's going to be an interesting weeks ahead, definitely. And since we're always talking about that, let's also factor in what's happening during this week in the UEFA Champions League. So welcome back to our last section of today. We're going to talk about the UEFA Champions League. It's going to kick off all this week. We'll have very interesting matches both Tuesday and Wednesday. I think, to be honest, regarding Tuesday matches, we need to highlight Paris Saint-Germain against Manchester United. That's going to be a good one, with Edinson Cavani going back to where he was happy. I think that's going to be an interesting one. Regarding Group G, you'll still have Juventus and Barcelona, which we expect them to beat both Dynamo Kiev and Ferencváros, respectively. Right. Then also very interesting, despite, sorry, not mentioning it as the most favorite or most interesting game, but still Lazio Dortmund. How are you feeling for the game?
I'm very glad that you're mentioning this interesting after the performance we had this weekend. I think it's going to be very one-sided. Right now, the Lazio depth of the squad is not sufficient. We are facing many injuries. We're currently playing only one of our starting defenders. It doesn't look good. We're playing Parolo, who's a 35-year-old midfielder who never ever in his life plays a defender as a starting 11 defender because we have nothing better.
But don't worry, it's just Erling Braut Haaland on the other side, so it should be easy for the 35-year-old Parolo to catch him.
That's what I'm saying. If we struggle against Quagliarella and Caprari, I hardly can see us playing against Ruiz and Haaland and the rest of the Dortmund team. It's gonna be tough. It's a pity because we finally managed to get to Champions League, but I think it's not the best moment for the Lazio squad. So let's see how that goes. There are also actually rumors about Inzaghi leaving Lazio because he didn't like the transfer market. And at the same time, the president didn't like that. He didn't like the transfer market. So there are actually rumors about possible change on the seat of Lazio. Let's see if that's going to happen. But yeah, not the best situation for Lazio for sure.
And in terms of that, wouldn't be the first that I've seen this season because Vitória Guimarães' coach, Thiago, the former Atletico Madrid midfielder, he resigned and it was his first job. And he resigned from being a coach of Vitória because of the poor transfer market, despite getting Ricardo Quaresma.
Yeah. It's often you see this, right? As a manager, you have a short list of players you want. As a president, you have different objectives. Sometimes you can match the objectives that you have as a president, be it make money, be it invest in players such as Quaresma that bring a little bit of momentum to your team, of fans, or whatever it is, right? A little bit of the glory that possibly you haven't had in a couple of years. But at the same time, if as a manager you don't get the defender that you need, the defensive midfielder that you need because you have no one that can play the ball, it's quite useless to have yet another wing. And we've seen that in multiple teams. And as you mentioned, Guimarães and Lazio are only 2 examples. But that happens more often than not.
Yeah. No, and then another interesting game we'll have is probably Chelsea-Sevilla, which will probably see Sevilla's quest for another Europa League title starting in this Champions League. I think it's going to be an interesting one.
That means that you're voting Sevilla to lose, right? Because they need to not score more points than Chelsea.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely. No. Sevilla is going to lose this game for sure. Then they're probably, I'm just not sure who they'll let through between Rennes and Krasnodar. I think Sevilla's probably going to let through whoever wins the other game this time, you know. They're probably going to say,
Yeah.
okay, if Rennes win, we're going to let them through and play Krasnodar. Everyone plays Krasnodar down, or vice versa.
Yeah, that will
Let's
make
see.
sense.
Yeah,
It's
right.
all about priorities.
So, yeah, and priority to win. Winning is the only thing that matters at Sevilla in terms of Europa League. Then on Wednesday, we have another couple of interesting matches. I have to highlight from Group D, Ajax against Liverpool. That's a cool one, let's be honest. Especially without Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, two teams that really like to play the offensive football, a lot of quality, a lot of wing play in both teams. Ajax is once again going through a restructure. They basically have no players from the Champions League semi-final 2 years ago, but nonetheless, it's a very quality team. They got also one of the Dutch players that were, well, let's say one of the lost wonder kid in the last day of the transfer market class, and is currently performing at a decent level. So let's see how that also evolves.
Yeah, and on the other side, we'll have Liverpool, which has a lot of problem with Virgil van Dijk, as stated, and also Alisson will be out, and they'll have Adrian in goal. So defensively, a lot of issues for Liverpool, which was their backbone last season. So I'm curious to see how they'll pan out. Then we have a Portuguese representative, FC Porto, going to City. Any hope from the guys up north of Portugal?
I mean, we never know, right? It's Champions League, and teams like Porto have already shown us in the past that can pull a very good performance. I think the chances are very slim, though. I wouldn't put it more than 10-15% for Porto to win, and definitely less than 30 for Porto to snag a point after this game. I really see Manchester City, despite not being the strongest in the league right now, as a way better team this year compared to Porto. So it's gonna be tough.
No, I agree with you 100%. Group B will have Real Madrid and Shakhtar. Should be an easy win for Real, right?
I believe so. Shakhtar is not the Shakhtar they used to be. Real Madrid is not the Real Madrid they used to be either, but it's still way ahead. And they're playing at home. They need to bounce back before the last game. They need to get some momentum before the Clásico. Quite confident it's going to be a win for Real Madrid.
Well, and then another game I still want to discuss is from Group A. We have FC Bayern Munich against Atletico Madrid. What a mouth-watering match, right? I mean, Sane, Gnabry on one side, Luis Suarez, and João Felix on the other.
Yeah, precisely. This is definitely the match I want to watch the most of the Wednesday ones. Bayern Monaco is definitely coming ahead in this one, at least before the game. It's the underdog is Atletico Madrid. However, let's be honest, the quality that Atletico has, they can pull a win. They can definitely score a couple of goals, and it's gonna be a good football. It's gonna be quality football, no doubts given. I still see Bayern ahead, but I expect a very nice game. 3-1 for Bayern. It's gonna be my prediction if I have to go with numbers.
Yeah, to be honest, Bayern is proving to have a very reliable start of the Bundesliga. It's one of those teams that does not seem to suffer from the pandemic so far, despite one hiccup a couple of weeks ago. I think it's going to be a very interesting week, definitely on the Champions League front, and we'll have loads more to discuss in the coming weeks for sure. So, yeah, thank you so much, Marco, for being here with us.
Thank you very much for having me, Alex, and thank you for the listener to listen to us.
Cheers. And everybody, pay attention to this week. It's going to be a mouth-watering week in the European Champions League. And please follow us on Instagram under Euro Football Verdicts, and send us emails with your question on eurofootballverdicts@gmail.com. Have a nice one. Bye-bye.